KTN News. Get the whole story.
Kwa tayari kumpatia ndugu Musalia Mudavadi Deputy President wa Kalonzo Musyoka. Nilikuwa tayari na tulikuwa tumeongea na hao wengine tukaelewana. Gideon Moi hakuwa na problem, Weta hakuwa na problem, sijui huko ameenda atapatiwa nini. After 5 years nilikuwa tayari nimwambie ndugu Mudavadi, I will now support you openly so that we also can show Kenyans kunaweza kuwa viongozi whose word is their bond. That was my plan. Lakini akatimuka. I wish my brother well.
Ile kiwango ni 50+1. Hapa tuko na 46%. Tuko na nini? Sasa hiyo ingine unasema hatuwezi kupata kwingine.
Fire! Fire! Vijana fire! Vijana fire! Vijana fire! Sisi zetu hapa tunawajua. Wako wote katika kona moja. Wako katika kona moja. Sisi wa Kenya tuko kwa kona zote. Wao wako kwa kona za moja tu hawa. Tunawaona hawa. Tunawaona hawa. Tunawajua hawa. Tunajua hawa. Pembe tatu. Pembe ngapi? Pembe ngapi?
Wamekutana kwa kona yao. Wakora wote. Wezi wa Goldenberg wako kule. Alol Kimwalelo wako kule. Kule maneno ya cemetery wako huko. Hata wale kabisa wanaiba mpaka pesa na nyumba za watoto.
Mimi naona mheshimiwa Musalia anaomba kiti ya Matiangi. Si angeomba baba tu hiyo kiti badala ya kuenda huko na anaomba kiti.
That we are going to make a coalition of the willing and a coalition of respect. Tukazungumuza tukapata jirani yetu Mheshimiwa William Samoei Ruto. Kenya hii tunaweza waachia tu ng'ombe ya grade, lakini hatuwezi kuachia ng'ombe ya kienyeji. Yani tumewekwa kwa kategori ya kisiasa kwamba kuna wengine wa grade na kuna wengine ya kienyeji.
Eti wanataka kuweka kigaragozi, ati wanataka kuweka puppet, ati wanataka kuweka kibaraka, ati mwenye atalinda maslahi yao alinde maslahi ama mali yao. Nasema tuungane na Weta na Musalia na Hasla na Gachagua na wabunge wetu na Duale na wale wote tuunganishe.
Right, welcome back. You're watching Standpoint, and that was a soapbox just to give you a weekly wrap of a political tone and tenor that was on the ground as well. We continue pace with our conversation with our panelists. We have, or we're holding court this morning with Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, who's the governor of Kisumu. Also, we do have with us Professor John Onyango-Puo, who is the governor of West Pokot. Isaac Mwahura, who's a nominated senator. We had also the member of parliament from Ndaragwa. This is Jeremiah Kioni, who apparently had to leave also hurriedly this morning because he's been called for a meeting. That is Azimio La Umoja meeting, so he has to attend to that as well. But we'll continue with the conversation with the rest of the panel. Right, I think I'll just go straight to Professor Anyang' Nyong'o because he had raised an issue with OKA. And we have Professor here, Professor Onyango-Puo, who is a member of OKA as well with the KUP. You can actually tell us, you're saying, yeah, you're not a member of OKA? Oh, no.
No.
By virtue of you being in, oh yeah, KUP, I was confusing with KANU.
It's bigger than that. Kenya Union.
Kenya Union. All right. Yes, so I want us just to get a clear that they don't have a clear, is it mantra like the Kenya Kwanza? Yes.
It's a pity that young Isaac Mwaura, quite honestly.
Isaac Mwaura.
Yeah, because you see, if he says that the Jubilee government has wrecked the economy, and Ruto is deputy president up to now of the Jubilee government, and for the first 5 years, he was very active in promoting Jubilee government projects. He never denounced them. Up to now, he hasn't denounced them. Aror, the only thing he said that, well, if only 7 billion shillings was lost, only. That's not only, that's not pocket money. So he can't run away for taking responsibility of the Jubilee government, in which he's still deputy president, whereas he has absconded since the last 5 years, campaigning for UDA. I mean, this is hypocrisy of the worst kind. Then the same Mwaura saying, we should not look at history, look at the future. That means that he doesn't want us to look at those 5 years when Ruto was actively busy looting this country. We know it, and the thing will come out. So don't hoodwink Kenyans. I mean, look, that young man, I brought him up. He knows that. And I'm really sad to see him saying, forget history. You cannot forget history. You cannot forget our past. Our past makes us today. I cannot forget the fact that I've been part of the second liberation since the 1970s. Because that's what brought multi-party democracy in 1992. Where we young Turks brought in 6 older men because we knew we wanted to unite Kenyans, and we were ready to cede leadership to this older generation because they were relevant to Kenya's history. They were the receptacle of Kenya's history, which Kenya needed to go forward. Right. So look, to say things so simply and to forget that those things have made this country what it is today is hypocritical and completely dangerous. And we must not allow that kind of thing to sail through the avenue of politics in this country. We must stand firm and let them know the truth of this country. And let's be firm because we know the person who has been a man of integrity all through and suffered for it, and the whole world knows, is Raila Odinga. You cannot dispute that. History is there. Facts are there. Today, yesterday, and tomorrow.
Right. Let me give you a chance also to just reply before you come to Professor Lonyangapuo as well. Yeah, Isaac Mwaura, the professor is taking special umbrage with what you're saying. We should not remember the history, but we should forget the history and, of course, look forward to the future as well. What will be your response in regard to what, of course, he's saying with the Jubilee administration handling also of the economy?
Yeah, you know, it's very interesting. Jeremiah Kioni and I were debating yesterday night somewhere. So he had said that he can only be here for 1 hour. So may he go well with his Azimio plans. But Professor has just put a very interesting twist that I was not very clear about. That when they formed the Young Turks, they had 6 older men that they brought, on board to give them leadership, because they were older. And Kenya seems to have a history with the number 6, because we also had the Kapenguria 6, who really, are seen as the ones who, in the front in fighting for the liberation of this country, freedom. And then we also had the Ocampo 6, which really ushered in the kind of current era that we have of politics. I think the Ocampo 6 is what created Uhuru and Ruto. And of course now, the fallout within the handshake, we had the Jubilee 6, who were expelled, and I was the real target. And I thank God I was able to overcome that. So number 6 seems to represent something. We have history. We have history, and it is important, but we should not be beholden to history to the extent that then we cannot move on. The second liberation mantra has existed really primarily since 1992. The clamor is much longer, as Prof has said, and it's true he's been my political mentor, and I really appreciate that. But now we are in 2022. That's actually how many years? 30 years? That means then there must be a new era. And that does not mean that whatever was done in the past was not useful. It just means people have to move on for new directions. You see, the 1992 clamor was largely about the Constitution. It was about civil liberties. It was about democracy, human rights, and governance. It was about political pluralism. It was about freedom of expression, association, and assembly. That we've already attained to a large extent. In fact, recently we had the East African Parliamentary Games, and you could see, the kind of dictatorship and the senses of violence and unfairness that was really demonstrated by our neighbors. I don't want to mention them. And Kenyans were even seen to be a little bit docile, more civil kind of people, because then we are used to some kind of fairness in a way, in one way or the other. So the new shift in 2022 It's about the economy. It's about equal opportunity. It's about chance. It's about revival. It's about, you know, regenerating. And that's, I'm saying this because even the median age of this country is 20 years. So we must have the youth dividend, you know, in terms of ensuring that then we have a younger generation of people. There is a lot of advancement in terms of technology and thinking. So now if you tell people, for example, that you fought against Moi, that would have made sense to our kind of generation who are about 40 and above or thereabout. But to these millennials, they don't understand. When you tell them that you are detained, not because it is anything wrong. In fact, we really salute and congratulate everybody who went through hell just because of the liberties that we enjoy today. But then people would ask, okay, we are being harassed every day by the policemen because they are seeing us, when we are going through our daily hassles, as if we are criminals. So really, let's accept, yes, that's part of our history. It is extremely important, but it is always time to move forward because this country is not ossified in the past.
Mm-hmm. All right. By the way, yeah, terrible misunderstanding. What I was saying, look, let me just finish this.
No, we will need to give Prof.
Okay,
also some time, then we'll come to this. Prof, I want you to respond to that as well.
You know, Professor Nyong'o is my friend. When he speaks, I speak. When I speak, he has spoken. I have heard what our friend Senator Mwaura said, and I think let's be consistent as a people of Kenya. We should not demonize an idea or a program just because you are not in agreement with it. That's what they seem to be playing about it. But personally, the way I'm seeing the politics of Kenya, it is like you create a wave for a day. Tomorrow morning, you've forgotten about it. Look at this terminology, which we just saw the other day. Earthquake. Suddenly, tremor. Suddenly, shock waves. And when you examine it, there is nothing. There is nothing. This is just normal decision to work with people. And the same orchestra players, political orchestra players. So I want, as a politician today in Kenya, let's not demonize people just because you are not in the same wing, you are not in the same lane of political belief. Playing dirty politics is what I'm now seeing here, where you are dirtifying people. Look at the language I've just had. We are talking of somebody I call a political giant has come to present himself, whether small or not, for a candidate of the president, and you call him a puppet. You call him Keparaka. You call him a project. What language are we trying to teach our children? What are we trying to teach these people we are leading and we are seeking their votes for? Tomorrow morning you meet in the same pulpit. Again, just because you have matched your beliefs, how will you undo what you said the other day? Listen to what Kina Mudavadi was talking about William Ruto the other day. Just before they change their mind. It's only Paul in the Bible who was called Saul who changed and who never bothered about behavior of yesterday. But these same characters are not changing. They are the same people. So we need to examine and maturely play our politics. This dirty one, just you are painting somebody so that you can get some credit. There's no credit here. So, for example, myself, I'm now in the same lane with Nyong'o. I've never been with them. But did you hear those days us insulting them or insulting us? You table your ideas, you table your beliefs, you table your manifesto. And that's what has driven me now, for example, to move to where I am headed to. And I expect them to do the same. About politics of economy of Kenya. What is so new that will be presented by this other team today, the combination of Mudavadi, William Ruto and so on, it's the same. There's nothing so new that is going to be tremendously new that they will deliver here. William Ruto and the company were working with the president for 5 years, now another 5 years going to 10. What miracle are they going to table here if you were not able to present anything that was meaningful, and you are now condemning the same things that you presented? To me, he would have easily been able to say we paraded and presented some policies that didn't work, or they are working, we can do it this way. But where you are just coming with major miracles like we are going to do things upside down, really, starting from now, he's still the deputy president, for example. He's still a deputy president, and I expect him to say, in my role now, what I want to be done right is this, what has gone wrong is this, and we think, given the opportunity, I can be able to do it this way. But his agenda that I've been reading and listening for the few days is not very good. It is somebody with a vengeance, puppet, kibaraka. Those languages are not very good in politics because we are leading our children, we are leading our people, and they are watching what we are saying. And then the neighborhood, by the way, the whole wide world is now on social media. And they know these Kenyans, what type of language is it. Why don't we critique the manifesto, critique the beliefs that I have, than to start insulting? These are insults.
They're insults.
Yeah.
Yeah, the caliber of politics that the brand of politics that we're espousing right now, we are putting the poster, is it brawn or brains as well? And we can see a lot of brawn on the ground as well. But I don't want to lose your track of thought. We want to respond to Isaac briefly.
Actually, look, William Ruto was part of YK92 in 1992, the most vicious fighting army for KANU then. And remember, on May 1st, 1992, we went on strike as the opposition on Labor Day, protesting the treatment of workers and the low wages of workers in Kenya and supporting the unions on that day. And remember, I was in Wayakiwe, going to Kabete, and YK92 attacked me, broke the windscreen of my car, so I went to Kabete police station to report. It is me who was locked in. It is me who was locked in. Okay. So I remember YK92 very well, and their atrocities. So Mwaura is telling us to forget that. And this is the same person who is now posing as the savior of Kenya. The same person who you ask him about around Komaror, on all those things, the corruption in the government, and his ministers in the government. I will not say what they did, and the resources they accumulated, that is now oiling the political machine of UDA, of which Mwaura is part. That Mwaura wants us to forget.
But Prof, if you run
let me just finish. Yes. Let me just finish. That he wants us to forget. Now, when we ask those 6 old men to join us in Ford, and then Ford split, Ford Kenya, Ford Asili, it is not just because they were old. They are a repository of Kenya's history. They were identified with the nationalist movement. Nationalism was still an issue in this country, and it's still an issue today. So we said that as young people, there's something we are lacking. We need to connect with these people so that what we're doing in terms of the second liberation is also rooted in our history. The progressives in the history of nationalism in Kenya, we must connect with. Because people know what they have stood for, they were stood for. People know that they meant well for this country. People know that they can still lead this second liberation with our support, and we go ahead. So it was an organic movement. It was not just a question of the young and the old. Yes, the old were part of our history. They were a repository of our history. They were still relevant to the change in this country. Their ideas about change, they had never changed themselves in their stand, so they were relevant to us. You see that? Now, it doesn't mean that age makes a difference to what you can do politically. The ideas that you hold here that make a difference. If that were not so, then Biden would not have been chosen as the leader of the Democratic Party against Trump, and he won. Because the ideas, the principle he stood for, that the people of the US appreciated against the stand of Trump that looked like this Kenya Kwanza business. Okay? So Mwaura should be very clear that history is important in the change in the country. You cannot forget it. I remember some time ago, the American writer Edgar Snow in 1958 was the first Western journalist to go to Beijing to go and interview Chairman Mao. When it was, the Chinese Revolution took place in 1949. So 1958 was hardly, just over 10 years when the Chinese Revolution had taken place. Edgar Snow asked Mao Zedong, Chairman Mao, what lesson can you learn from the French Revolution, which had occurred in 1789? You know what Chairman Mao told him? It is still too early to tell. It is still too early to tell. Our history is very short. What can we learn from the second liberation that emerged into the open in 1992 with multipartyism? it is still too early to tell. Therefore, the second liberators who are here today are saying now we need economic revolution in our country. All these things that we are saying, we have achieved a lot of political gains. The 2010 constitution was an advancement of our independence constitution. It brought devolution. That is why in the board of Azimio la Umoja, you find representation of devolution there in terms of governors. How many governors does Ruto work with? Does he really respect and trust and is ready to commit himself to devolution, lock, stock and barrel?
Good question. Let's hear from Olonyangapuo. Well, I also wanted to ask that particular question in terms of continuity, where you talk about the rich repository of knowledge that you have with the older generation. But there seemed to be a nexus which is missing between, the older generation and the young politicians. The mentoring, it's good that you've mentored Isaac Mwaura as well, but it seems also there is disparity between that mentorship, that they're not really mentored for, to take leadership, yes?
Edwin Sifuna, who is not the same.
Edwin Sifuna, who you also mentored.
On ODM, and last weekend, he gave an excellent interview in the Standard. You should read it. Mm-hmm, yeah. I was very proud of it.
I read it.
An excellent interview.
But young man. Those are just a few of
they're not
the young
few, man.
Just
about. Because you don't know them, they're not few, by the way. Just yesterday in the evening, I met a group of women who were from Kanu, by the way, who are championing Azimio. I was impressed. They are doing it by themselves in Mount Kenya. They are doing it by themselves. Young people, women. They are taking the mantle because they believe in Azimio.
Thank you, Lanyangapuo. That mentorship that we're talking about, so they're not few. Maybe I do not really know them as well. They've not been given this particular forum, but we should agree.
I come from West Pokot, whose headquarters is called Kapenguria. And you remember the famous Kapenguria 6. And
the magical number that Isaac is...
Yes, yeah. And Isaac needs to be told to go and remove the book quickly and read where our nation was angered. Kapenguria, where Mse and 5 others were detained, is next to where my office is. And the history is written very clearly. Were it not because of the sacrifice of those 6 men, plus the thousands and the many, including Jaramogi Odinga, who had to forfeit his privileged position given by the whites to take over the leadership of the land. And when I read the history printed there, which we should not forget it, we should actually print the history of Kenya like the way the Bible is. The children of Israel are told every season, remember where you were in bondage. So when I look at the way the struggle came, and that's what really drove some of us to start our own parties with an ideology whose anger is in the root of Kenya. The history that some people are trying to brush aside. And to me, history informs the future, where we are supposed to go. So that when we build on what our forefathers did, we build on what we are doing today, we can be sure that in the next 50, 100, 200 years ahead, irrespective of what formations are there. And if you look at even the giants that are presenting their candidature today for the position of president, they are not even declared yet. I don't know whether you already have candidates for these formations that we are talking about. I think they are still forming themselves. So to me, when I look at now there's a new one, Martha Karua talking of political volcano, thinking that I think they want to form another wave or another lane. Azimio is here. I don't know what the name now will be called. UDA now is going to be called. You say it is called Kenya?
Kenya Kwanza.
Kenya Kwanza. But it's commutative. Kwanza Kenya or Kenya Kwanza, we miss one and the same. There may be a new one coming, or they may collapse and even form. So there's a lot of movement coming around. That's why I'm saying we watch how we are taking our people in our political language and the way we express. At the end of it all, Kenyans are still looking at us as their leaders. So if we begin to offer ourselves as puppets to insult others, people will be wondering what is it. And tomorrow morning they see us taking a cup of tea here. Fortunately, my brother Anyang has been in ODM all through. I was in Kanu for a long time before I matured now to Kenya Union Party. I've never insulted my team in Kanu. In fact, I'm I'm now aware they are in Asimio, like myself. Suppose we were insulting ourselves all those times. Yet, what is important is for us to tape our candidature and our manifestos. In West Pokot, I have asked and I told my colleagues, irrespective of what political formation they are in, let's not drive our people to negativity of beginning to fight one another just because of politics. Our politics should be driven to make sure that Kenya is at the centerpiece. Our people and the unity of our people is at the centerpiece of everything that we are doing. So maturity counts. Youth also counts. So we blend one another. And this is what we should be able to count on in politics, so that we do not have a stand that tomorrow morning when you are seen on the other side, how will you when you talk? I saw the way you are playing clips there. If you played the clip that showed how you are producing terminologies that will really hurt even yourself, and suddenly you are now opposite. How do they rap, by the way? How do they rap that from their mind? That it was you the other day was saying this, now I'm saying this. The end of it all is politics of majority should be the one that should reign supreme in what we are doing. And that's what we, if you remember when we were in Senate, all of us, we actually purpose, let's bring majority of politics to standard. We have also done the same in the Council of Governors. If I saw the other day you are showing the leadership of the new leadership. That you've retained the leadership. Yeah, yes. Yeah. All of us are there. You've seen the way we work maturely, irrespective of which side of the political divide you are in. The others on the Uda side, the others now on the SB side. We work as a team. We disagree to agree maturely, but not in a way that I think my brother Maura has a long way to go. He has a few hurdles to overcome, but he's a very bright, brilliant man. But he has a few political milestones to overcome, so that we don't look at Kenya from the prime. From the prism of your vision, yet the country is bigger than that. Thank you. Yeah.
Right. Let me just come to you, Isaac Mwaura, and ask you, since we're talking also this brand of politics that we are in right now, given that also the leader of your party right now, UDA, this is Dr. William Ruto, was a mentor of Daniel, the late, of course, the president of Kenya, Daniel Arap Moi. Do you think if he was here today, he will be happy with the brand of politics that is being espoused by Deputy President William Ruto?
I think, Debal, you've rightfully asked a question before about mentorship, and I want to give credit to my political mentor, Peter Nyang'nyongo, who we are debating with today. At some point, I had issues with debating with him on the same platform because I respect him a lot. And he will also tell you that he kind of also mentored Mokisa Kitui, during the Young Turks movement. And that mentorship is extremely important, because then it is actually a generational carryover, towards the future, because you have to stand on the shoulders of giants for you to move forward. So there's a transition. Ideally, that's what we are discussing here. There's a transition, and the question is whether we need to wait a little bit longer for, say, a Raila presidency at his prime age of 77, or do we move the Ruto way at his middle age, if you can call it that way, or upper middle age of about 55 or thereabout. That is the actual debate. And you will see the people around the age of Raila are coalescing around him. Second-time governors, who want to continue, the status quo, deep state people and what have you. And the younger generation is actually inspired by William Ruto. That can only be compared, Debal, with the case of Barack Obama versus Donald Trump, for example, or even Joe Biden. You see, everybody is running their race. And sometimes people mature earlier than others, because you see, by the time Obama is retiring, even one has not yet become president, in the case of Trump and Biden. And that is also the case of George Bush Jr. So really, and even President Uhuru became president, I think 50 years or thereabout, and President Kibaki became president at the prime age of 72. So Kenyans will decide that. For me, I'm on this other side, because I believe for a very long time, Raila has missed his chance. His best shot, in my opinion, was 2007, That time he was strong, ebullient, forceful. It was his moment. And that's the same thing I see now with William Ruto. Exactly, possibly where, because he could have been around 57 that time, if I'm not wrong, or a little bit younger, older. And that's where, so William is young, vibrant. And I've seen William transform, by the way. Because we were with him in ODM, and Professor, you can remember, Professor Anyang Nyong'o, he was a member of the Pentagon. The William Ruto I knew then, and the William Ruto that I know now, that I interact fairly closely, almost on a daily, weekly basis, is a very transformed person. Very humble, forthright, connected with the masses, feeling, the tempo. He's actually taken over from Raila Odinga because Raila decided to join the system's people in a quest to win the presidency. Ruto decided to join the masses. So it's like they are swapped places to the extent that the Hustler Nation is effectively the official, is a government in opposition. And the Jubilee and ODM are effectively or essentially the opposition in government. So that kind of trade-off has introduced a very thin line. You can't really tell who is who, what, where, and how. And just to draw lessons from the Beijing consensus, if I can call it. Yes, I agree with Prof. Because I spent two good weeks at the Chinese Academy of Governance in 2019. So I have really learned a lot from them in terms of how they have even built from the Russian Revolution, if you can call it, the issue around Marx and Engels. And they really cherish history. You can even see their planning, the centenary plan, that was started in 1920s and the way it has been implemented, going all the way to Tiananmen Square, and of course now the succession of the Chinese Communist Party, CPC, and the internal democracy there within their own structures. Now that is their system, and I don't know whether you can really replicate the Chinese experience in other democracies or in other jurisdictions because of the superstructure of such a state and the sheer number of population, about 1.4 billion people. That they call it, their socialist, democracy or socialist market economy, and that we can debate in terms of our ideology. However, the time has come in terms of connecting with the masses, in terms of speaking about the poor man's issues, in terms of ensuring that then you revive the economy from the bottom up, rather than the trickle down, big business kind of thing. That, I think, is really the point of departure. You see now the challenge of trying to say that the problem is the constitution is that you end up with a BBI scenario where you reintroduce an imperial presidency that has been able to create a small group of people at the top that is extremely wealthy, extremely powerful, rather than making it more democratic in terms of having, checks and balances on the three, arms of government. And it is actually ironical, Debal, that the people who clamored for the new constitution are the ones who wanted to dismember it, purely on account of wanting to access state power. So that is to mean their quest to actually democratize the country was not so much about the people, it was so much about using the constitution as an avenue to gain to state house. And that is something we must really question. And that's why you see many erstwhile supporters of Raila Odinga have fallen by the wayside. I mean, they have left him and they have moved on. And the earthquake was really trying to address that dishonesty that has been seen over time. So let's just accept that, the best days of Raila Odinga are in the past, and we respect him for what he's been able to suffer for this country for. But he actually, in a quest to become relevant and to join government, he has shortchanged himself, in my opinion. Because if he had stayed, united with NASA, today he would have run Jubilee out of town. Believe you me. There is no way with all of what that has happened now that Jubilee administration would have stood the chance of being elected. But you see, he vacated his prime role of being the people's watchman, and now that has been taken over by a sitting deputy president. He's the one who is speaking the language of the masses at the expense of Raila Odinga. So right now you cannot say Raila cannot take over the ills of the government. He must as well inherit whatever is good for that government, but also all the ills. And unfortunately, if you look at the weighing scale, the ills are more than the good. And yes, when you come from the point of opposition, you have the fire in the belly, you shoot from the hip. So you can criticize the government the way you would want to. Can you imagine the people who are criticizing the government are us people who went around the country to campaign for the president and the deputy? For me, as I told you before, I did over 400 rallies, my car even got wrecked. And now we are the people, we are the outsiders in our own government. I wish Raila Odinga had the same position we are in now. People are resonating with our message. And that's why you can see out of the erstwhile former provinces,
Thank you.
8 of them, we are leading in 6 of them.
Right,
you see, and now with the combination of Musalia Mudavadi in Western and Ruto support, then we are even leading in Western.
Thank you. Do you hold with this view?
Young man, you know, somebody once said that bad politicians are people who speak with their mouths open and their minds closed. He's a typical one. His mouth is open, his mind is closed. I never said anything about the Chinese Revolution when I was talking. I talked about history. I said that Edgar Snow asked Chairman Mao, your revolution was 10 years ago. The French Revolution was in 1789. What can the Chinese Revolution learn from the French Revolution? Mao's answer was, it is still too early to tell. What I was trying to convey to Mwaura is the effects of the second liberation in 1992, were Edgar Snow to come here today, we'd still say, is it too early to tell because the time is short. Within this short time, we have tried our best to move Kenya. And I think I'll give him my book, Presidential or Parliamentary Democracy, Choices to be Made. I think I'll give him the book so that he can read and get more informed, really, because he's terribly confused, this young man. What I was saying is the following. What we did in 1992, what we achieved in 1992 was a result of a long history of struggle. Started by people like Jaramogi for independence and continued by us in 70s and 80s through a lot of pain and it culminated in multi-party politics. That was not the end of it. Multi-party politics led to 10 years of struggle for a true democratic election to be held in Kenya in 2002. Since independence, there have only been 2 democratic elections held in this country, 1963 and 2002. You understand? Mm-hmm. Truly speaking. Now, after that, you know, after the Nanak revolution, as it were, it took another 8 years before we get the constitution. Okay, these things have cumulatively been building on each other to birth modern Kenya democratically in terms of economic development. We feel now that we are ready for economic revolution. And we speak more for the people than them. They just mouth it. They have not lived it. They have not internalized it. They don't believe it. It's something that they mouth without thinking, giving very simple answers like bottom up. Bottom up was there for ages. It never worked in the World Bank and so on. It was denounced as a cliche. They don't even know that. But we are talking about revolutionizing the economy. And we are working very hard to put our manifesto in public. That kind of things Raila has been talking about and we have been talking about in our rallies. We're not worried about them. We're not. Because we know they pronounce and speak about simplistic solution to our problems. We don't think that will work and it will never work.
Right. Right. Let's say from Lonyango, because also he raises a point that the Raila we know right now is not the vibrant, feisty Raila that has been. That since the handshake and of course now the projection of BBI, he is emasculated. We can see him, he's not really having that particular verve and, you know, he's not just at the zenith as it were. This is according to Mwaura. So did the handshake emasculate Raila? That we don't have that zenith and Okwa that he had before. And now we can see that has been transformed. Not transformed. Right. All right, let me just use transported. And that has been now trajected, I should say, to William Ruto.
I want us to, again, look back at our short history as Kenyans. Our founding father, the late President Jomo Kenyatta, at what stage did we become the head of state? Quite age advanced and rich in knowledge and experience. Moi, the late President Moi, was with him for a long, long time until he naturally took over But one distinction that Moi had was the humility and the obedience to the cause he believed in with his mentor. Look at when President Kibaki became the president. Quite mature. He had tried before several times. And that's how he ended up being trusted by the people of Kenya. Right now, I can already see people saying, Raila is not a vibrant one that he used to be. What are you looking for? Are you looking for somebody who can go to the boxing ring and start fighting? Or what are we looking for? Somebody who has a manifesto? Raila has had manifestos before when he stood. But the one we have seen today is so seasoned and encompassing all the people of Kenya. Like some of us who never even voted for him before, I have read what he has tabled here. And I am believing that what he has put to do for the people of Kenya is realistic and stable and viable for all of us. William Ruto has begun his. Looks like he has a few more lessons to overcome, which is, there's nothing unique about it. So let's not force things. There's time for everything. So at the moment, the manifesto that is realistic, that making sense, is what you've already seen from this other candidate. And I don't know whether Deputy President and the rest will bring anything in their manifesto or not, or just still talking about, I don't know which one now, because it was bottom up the other time. When now Mudavadi has joined in, maybe they will call it something else. But to me, let us examine what they are proposing to offer. Let's not look at this vibrancy or this youth. Of course, you mature with time and age, and Kenyans will be asking a very simple question. After all is said and done, these candidates, are they going to be 2 or 3? On whose hands and on whose vision are we a bit safe for some time before others come? You know, it's like a mantle handing over to others. So to me, let's not allow our politicians to start bombarding. Let them examine and table their ideas and manifesto. Examine one by one. This is what we live in. They come and they display and talk about it until you guys ask all the questions that are relevant. Even Kenyans also should be allowed to be calling in when we are seated here. Sure. So that we are on the right track. So to me, this is just the beginning. Where we have now reached, Kenyans are going to see the true reality of what people want to talk about. We cannot just try to come and please people just to grab power. After that, what next? And by the way, of these candidates who are offering themselves, what have they done in their current or previous positions, so that we can be able to see, is there a testimony that can profile and give us hope that if we allow them to come here, they can do it. So this is what I have in mind, and we should be able to be to do that. And like Professor Nyang said, it's too early. I mean, to do that, to talk about it, and they say a day in politics is excessively long. So to me, let us follow what we think is sure and sober. I read some strange things. People are saying that there are more governors are on the side of Azimio than the other side. Reason, or because maybe they have problems, that's why they have run. What is run to Azimio? What is inside there that is hiding people to be from being done what? Let's not be very cheap. Don't not be very cheap to start imagining. In fact, if there was anything that, if they were thinking that you are savable because you have more sins, you should come this side, then this team of William should be on the side. If that is the belief people, and what I don't know what is covering them. I mean, so let's not be too cheap like that. People are mature. Governors are carrying people. And we are so cautious. I have to pray and dream for my people, so I don't just carry them anyhow.
Yeah. That's what that. You know,
could I give Isaac that I come to you at least to be fair sequentially?
No, I'll just add to what he was saying.
Just briefly then.
Yeah, very briefly.
Sure.
You know, one of the reasons why governors are in Azimio, because we believe and practice devolution, and Raila has been with us on this devolution thing from the very beginning. It's never wavered, consistently. I would like Isaac to tell us the history of Ruto on issues of devolution. Since the Kanu days up to now, and to find out who has been... I remember after the referendum of 2005, about 7 of us, assistant ministers and ministers, proceeded to Upper Hill. We say, okay, we have defeated the government on this referendum, what next? We say, well, even in Britain, Wilson's Labour Party was defeated in a referendum. And the ministers who were on the other side of the divide came together and said, yes, we have settled an issue, but the Labour continues. So we went to Upper Hill and we wrote a letter to Kibaki. We were going to take it to him the next day. I would say, well, the results of the referendum is out. Okay, the no have won. Okay, but the NAC government must continue. And unfortunately, that very evening, Kibaki dissolved the cabinet. So our letter was rendered useless. We could not go, but we were prepared. We had stood as a matter of principle. That doesn't mean that we were forsaking NAC as a government. It was an issue of principle we had stood on, but we still wanted to carry on with the NAC revolution. Right. That's why I'm saying that we still consistent follow that.
All right. So Isaac, Prof would love to know also, Dr. William Ruto's history with devolution. Maybe you can bring us up to speed briefly.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think these are very important questions. And before even I come to that, there is an issue of trading off places, because I didn't hear Professor Nyangopuo answering that question very well. Anyway, I see his party is KUP. It sounds like KPU actually in a way. And no wonder he's in Azimio. But let me say that you see the whole idea of a Raila who is being supported by the right-wing kind of politics and using the left-wing kind of mantra of handouts called 6,000 shillings social welfare. And we have a history. Prof Nyong'o there, we have written manifestos with him for the ODM party. One that I remember very well that we did together is 2007. And so I know where we come from in terms of being left-leaning. And so it is a very awkward moment for now. I don't know whether because it's a matter of age, as you grow older, you become more conservative. But then in terms of the rhetoric, there is a mismatch. It's like oil and water. And that has to come out. William Ruto, on the other hand, is supposed to be the right-wing candidate. Of course, he's practicing right of center because he's not just promising handouts. He's promising a regeneration of the economy, like you stimulate the economy from the bottom up. And this bottom up is important because that's the same thing you see Joe Biden, who is also left of center, in terms of being a Democrat, championing. In fact, he's harnessing it by saying bottom up, middle out. I was just reading one of his latest tweets saying that the big corporates have been, milking, the American economy, and it's time that then, of course, they do not continue to enjoy, state protection. So that is an ongoing debate that is actually global in nature. And I'm also happy to say that while initially the whole issue was about BBI and the change of the constitution, now even our competitors have come to the level of agreeing that the next election is going to be shaped in matters economy. The other issue that then, of course, also arises is that in whose hands are we safe? We have cumulatively 9 years of Raila's, experience in government. When he was a minister under the Kanu NDP Corporation for about 1.5 years. He was, Minister for Roads and Energy for 3 years, I think, under Kibaki administration. When I remember when they were outed, that's around the time I joined ODM, and then 5 years as Prime Minister. So he has about 9 years of experience in government. For William Ruto, he has over 20 years of experience in government, apart from the short stint where he was out after NAC won power, about 3 or so years. So basically, I believe, in my opinion, that we are in safer hands of William Ruto. And do you want to have someone who started well, who then has changed midway, or do you want to have someone who may have the history of 1992, YK92, but then it's like Saul of Tarsus, who gets a Damascus moment? For me, I would go for the second option. So really, that is, and of course also, the new imagination, in terms of the struggle. And some of us have actually stood for our beliefs. I mean, for me, and I want to reiterate here again, last year I was out of the Senate for 7 good months with no salary. I was actually facing 7 cases. I had to appear in court over 30 times. I mean, drones were sent to my house. A gang was prepared to actually annihilate me. and we were able to overcome. And there are many people who have been done a lot of ills just because of what they believe. What is a belief? We had a program. We wanted to be honest that President Uhuru should do 10 years and Deputy President William should do another 10 years. Because of standing for that principle, the Jubilee program, we are now being told to forget history, to forget what we stood for, to forget what we agreed upon, and move on. And that kind of dishonesty is also replicated under NASA, where Raila Odinga told his core principles that it is only one term. In 2013, then I leave it for you. Kalonzo says, no, I am not ready and willing to deputize Raila for the third time. So you can see the kind of dishonesty that is in our politics. And that is what Kenyans are trying to run away from.
Thank you.
If you can be dishonest in terms of your political friends, I mean your allies, what about then when you actually get into power? You can even see recently Jimmy Wanjigi, who is a presidential candidate within ODM, and who has since not been told when the NDC will happen, so that they can settle the scores between him, Oparanya, and Raila. But he's now also, his offices are being attacked. So,
thank you.
I mean, Debal, what we are trying to say, just to finish, because I'm alone on this other side, you can see it's 2 against 1, that we need to agree that it is time for the country to forget the past, and move forward and start on a clean slate.
Thank you very much. We are pinched for time, and I just want to give each of you maybe 30 seconds to wind up, Prof. 30 seconds for you to just give your headline thoughts.
I wish Mulaura could have hit the nail on the head and told us the history of Ruto regarding corruption, because that is the key issue that has made this country go down economically. What is his history on corruption? What role did he play in Aror, Kamaror, Dam, and all those things? All these projects that collapsed when he was deputy president, and therefore chairing the implementation of government programs. Why did he jump the ship when he knew that the ship was sinking and left it to Uhuru Kenyatta to resurrect it? Uhuru has done a lot of infrastructural projects since Ruto left. How come most of infrastructure projects have been succeeding when he's out of government rather than when he was in government? Let them answer those questions.
Thank you. Right. Professor Lonyango.
Myself, I see people talking about that the President Uhuru Kenyatta broke promises, 10 years for himself, 10 years for William Ruto. And by the way, those were political statements to have his votes day one, which they did. But when it comes to reality now, to offer the candidate and to look for the president and the leadership, you must go to the people. It is not a statement that you are going to live by. You cannot begin to share and divide Kenya. What about the elections and so on and so on? So one cannot feel very bitter that I was shortchanged. Votes are waiting for people to offer themselves. Personally, I want to ask Kenyans, let us look at the manifestos. Let us look at what people believe and the determiner and the stamina they have had towards the cause we have. After all is said and done, we must realize that we are building Kenya ourselves for our people, and whatever we are promising should be realistic, isn't it? So that we cannot just talk about statements that people talk around here and so on and so on.
Right, thank you very much. Isaac Mwaura, your parting shot, briefly, parting shots.
Yeah. I think Prof. Nyong'o, when he was Minister for Medical Services, started something called Universal Healthcare. Yesterday I was in a place called Gekumari in Ruiru, Zone Q. Baba and Mama Njoroge, they have their son, who is now deceased, with a bill of 2.3 million. I've been helping people to do waivers in these public hospitals. We just need to ensure that we have a working health system, because many of our people are reeling under, big, huge, medical bills, and it can hit you. I mean, this Isaac died of a brain tumor. There are so many cancers around. I think we need to do something that is longer lasting, like the National Health Service of the United Kingdom.
Thank you. Yeah. Isaac Mwaura, nominated senator, thank you for coming through. Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, Governor of Kisumu, thank you for coming through. Also Professor Lonyango, Governor